Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to Planet 76, episode 159. Last week was our joyous reunion because we hadn't recorded in nearly 2 months. We're back. Gladly. Troy and I are both glad that we are going to continue our usual slate of episodes. And I want to make a public announcement. I did it on my Instagram, and I did it on our Instagram as well. If you're someone who's been keeping up with the podcast through our very long hiatus, we both appreciate that. Obviously, our goal is listeners and viewership here on this podcast. So if you're one of those people, thank you. We really appreciate it because you probably could have left, and we deserved it because we took so long off. But we're glad you stayed, and if you did come back, we're glad you're back. So let's just hop right into it. The Sixers season. It's funny. Troy and I were texting before we started, and we were talking about what kind of episodes we want to do in the next couple of weeks. And Troy said we want to try and get 2 out before the start of the season next Wednesday. And I said to him, next Wednesday? I just cannot believe that we are already, obviously preseason has come and gone, but we are already nearly at the start of the regular season. So I'm really excited, and I'm just going to kick it right to Troy, and we're going to get right into the episode. We're going to touch on some things we talked about last week, a little more in-depth, but also go into some more topics. Some things have surfaced that we definitely want to discuss and address heading into the season. So Troy, the floor is yours. I will shut up now.
All right. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. Season's 9 days away. We're recording Monday the 14th, and season's right around the corner. Both of us are very excited about that and excited to, again, as you said, well put, that we're back and happy to be back and happy to have you listening or watching along with us. So, there's some things to get into. Sixers actually playing right now in preseason. Got a couple more left, and then the regular season's here as they tip off when the Milwaukee Bucks come to town next Wednesday. But before that, and before we even get into like a full-on, here's the season preview as we're talking about, all right, here's this game coming up in 2 nights. Who's going to win, why, Before we get into that, more just kind of broad things to discuss. And one of those pieces of information that you just hit on is in relation to Joel Embiid and some news coming out. I don't know if you saw. I feel like all that I saw was like subtweets and secondhand information. Do you where did this exactly come from? This information with Embiid, do you know? Like it was an interview.
It came from Shams. I know that for a fact. But I believe Joel Embiid also said it himself. I'm not sure the outlet that he said it through. But I'm fairly certain he also said those words, that he doesn't envision himself playing in back-to-backs for the rest of his career. That he did say that, those are his words.
That's a quote directly from him. It could be. I think I saw that on ESPN, so that would be related to Shams too, of course. Big news. I mean, Joel says a lot of things sometimes. Like he said, the direct quote itself is. If I had to guess, I would probably never play back-to-backs for the rest of my career. Now, what do you do with that information? We're going to talk about that. Some fans are kind of in an uproar. I don't know if that's the right word, maybe, for some. Some are on the other extreme who think it's a good idea, and then there's some that are in the middle. I think even, although Planet 76 has been on a hiatus, you've kind of talked about this even through the summer, Joel's on Trust to Love, that Joel and his health and him being healthy in the playoffs is of the utmost importance, and it's hard to disagree with that, right, when you put it in those terms. And so obviously what the Sixers are gearing up for is a hopefully long playoff run, and one that they want Joel to be healthy for. And so that's obviously the heart behind this, comment that he makes. And Daryl Morey, even a quote from him, he says, we're going to be smart about it. Part of being smart about it is having both Paul and Joel probably not play too many back-to-backs. So Paul George is in the mix in that conversation too. So your initial thought on that? Again, that's news that leaks today on Monday, or comes out. Your thoughts?
It's funny, unless it's something really massive in Sixers realm, Troy and I often don't talk about the Sixers too much off podcast, like off camera.
Yeah.
But I usually almost every time know how he feels about certain things. Not even because we both think the same way, Sixers wise, oftentimes, but genuinely because I know that he's rational and most Sixers fans are not. So with that being said, this is good. And the way I see it is this, and I don't understand how others don't see it this way, but the goal is a championship. The goal is to win a ring. Every Sixers fan wants the same thing. They want to win a ring. They want the Sixers to win a championship. That's what the organization wants too. It might sound crazy to hear me say that, and it might sound crazy to think that, but this organization wants to win a championship, and they want to win a championship with Joel Embiid, and the only way they're going to win a championship is with Joel Embiid. So you need Joel Embiid to be healthy. If you want to win a championship, why would you not do everything in your power to try and win a championship? I don't understand the mentality of fans. They want him to play all these games. They want him to play all the time, but then he gets hurt, and then they clown him for it. So you're potentially preventing any fluke injury while also potentially having the best version of Joel Embiid healthy and available for the playoffs in times where he struggled to stay healthy and on the floor. I don't understand how you could possibly see it another way. I just don't. And with Paul George too, he probably shouldn't play back-to-backs either. Because guess what? If you're going to win a championship, you also probably need Paul George, especially considering you just gave him a 4-year contract. So I understand most Sixers fans are extremely dense and they have no idea what they're talking about, but it's really not difficult to understand this move by the organization, by the medical staff, by Joel Embiid himself. He said it on numerous occasions, he wants to win. So if he said that and he's presenting or been presented what's the word I'm looking for? In a policy, whatever, an idea that helps him stay healthy to win a championship, why would he not do? This is the most rational thing that could possibly happen. This is something the Sixers should have done years ago when Doc Rivers was still here. I can't even believe that I'm even mentioning his name, but that's something they should have done years ago. The Joel Embiid should not be playing back-to-backs. I don't care how many games he misses. I don't care how many back-to-backs they have. Yep. Troy and I were talking about it a little bit. Troy has it on our outline. We'll hit that in a minute. But it doesn't matter how many. They could have 10 back-to-backs. I don't care. He should not be playing back-to-backs. There should be such an emphasis from fans for Joel Embiid to be as healthy as possible all the time. So if it means he plays 50 games total, okay. What's wrong with that? Accolades mean nothing. There's no reason why anybody, from a fan or organization member alike, there should be no reason for anyone to want Joel Embiid to potentially sacrifice his body and his health for accolades that people are going to clown him for anyway. Why do fans want him to win accolades so bad? Why do they want him to win so bad? I understand for his legacy, for his resume, but we all know how good Joel Embiid is. We, as fans, don't need the accolades to understand and know how good he is. So, as a fan, why do you want him to win accolades so badly? Why? I just don't get it. For the sake of potentially harming his health and his long-term ability to play basketball for the Sixers in their pursuit of a championship, why, as a fan, do you want that so badly? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. And I just don't understand. So, good thing that Joel Embiid is not playing back-to-backs. This is an inherently good thing. This is a good thing the Sixers should have done a long time ago. And same with Paul George. I don't know how much back-to-backs how many back-to-backs he played with the Clippers, but he should not be playing back-to-backs either. And it's funny, and we talked about it last week too. This is the last part I'll say. I'm talking too much. The Sixers now are even good enough to stay afloat without Embiid or PG. This is obviously they're going to be bad without them, but relative to the rest of the Eastern Conference, that's still a fine team. That's still an 8 or 9 seed in the East, and obviously you're not going to be there the whole season. But a short amount of time without Embiid and or George, you're fine with that. You should be fine with that. So nothing will change my mind on this. And if you're someone who has any problem with Embiid not playing back-to-back, you're just not a Sixers fan. You don't actually care about them winning. You just want to see.
You're an accolades fan.
Yeah, whatever selfish reason you have for wanting him to play so badly all the time while potentially sacrificing his health. You're psychotic. I'm sorry. You're a weirdo. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just.
And I think something else to throw into that conversation about, okay, without them they are a worse team, and okay, let's say they each miss 25 games, and because of that they're going to be a 6 seed or whatever it is.
Whatever.
All is said and done, as Sixers fans, and over the Joel Embiid tenure, we've experienced the number 1 seed. We've experienced the 2 or 3. We've experienced a 6 or 7. And look at what that's gotten us.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
And one more thing. I'm sorry, real quick, just to interject.
Yeah, you're good.
Just to interject. Seeding matters to an extent, but if you are so good as a team, it does not matter what seed you are. Look at the Miami Heat a few years ago, the 8th seed. They made the finals. It does. If you are so good. And when you have as much talent as the Sixers do, if you're healthy, it really doesn't matter what seed you are. Obviously, home court is cool. You don't want to have to play the better teams to the later rounds. But if you are that good as a team, it really shouldn't be a big problem to you, especially if and when your best players are healthy for when it matters against those big juggernaut teams.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's about matchups, and you're not going to determine what's going to be a good matchup for you, because you don't know based on what other teams are doing. And so wherever you land, as long as you're healthy, as long as if you told me today that they're a 6 seed going into the playoffs, but they are very, very healthy, I'm going to feel better than I would if they were the 2 seed and Embiid's a little banged up, right? Like let's call it what it is, regardless of who they're playing. So something else to
you
kind of
would
throw
rather. I'm sorry. This is the last part. I swear. This is the last thing I swear. If you would rather gamble on the Sixers potentially getting a lower seed than gamble with Joel Embiid potentially facing a massive injury.
Right. Absolutely. We got to have the big fella if we're going to go anywhere anyway. So, but I think something else to kind of throw into this conversation from my perspective, I am in full agreement. Like, I have no issue with him not playing in back-to-backs. I do think it's the smart thing. But I also think rather than – now, again, Joel says things a certain way, where it's a blanket statement.
Yeah.
I think rather than, like, the specifics of back-to-backs, I think the important thing is Joel and his body and just knowing what he can do in a given week. Like for example, let's say the Sixers have games on January 21st, the 23rd, and the 24th. Rather than just coming out and saying, yep, Joel's going to play on the 21st and the 24th, what if he's not good in a good space? He's a little banged up on the 21st, but then the 23rd he's feeling a little better, and the 24th he feels fine. Let him play. I think that his body plays a role in this too, rather than a blanket statement about he's not going to play here. So I think that's a factor in this too, and just listening to his body and knowing when he can go and when he shouldn't go is major too. Because again, let's not act like Sixers have 15 back-to-backs. These are the exact 15 games he's going to miss, and he'll play the other 67. I can guarantee that Joel's going to miss some games that aren't part of a back-to-back sequence, and that's okay too, as long as he's healthy for playoff time. So that's what's important. I will say I had a really good laugh at myself, and just people in general, because I don't know who's right. But I counted the Sixers back-to-backs for fun. I saw someone tweeted that they have 7, and that couldn't be further from the truth. That is not true at all. And then a couple, like CBS Sports, I think, maybe said 15. So I was like, hey, let me just count. Let me verify that. Michael, I counted 5 times. I counted 12. So I don't know, but I don't know if something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with whoever's writing at CBS Sports, but I counted 12 to be exact. And there's a ton in January. First part of the season, there's not many. There's maybe one in December. But January is a ton, and then not as much toward the end of the season. So January, February, March is kind of where it hits heavy. Just FYI for those that care, but kind of a funny point there. How much more? Now you touched on this a little bit, but you didn't say his name specifically. But how much more comfortable are you with this fact that back-to-backs, whatever, Joel Embiid's going to miss games, but now we have Oubre Drummond? What does that tell you?
It adds to the comfort level. I mean, you can't really argue with Oubre Drummond being your backup center. I think when it comes to backup centers in the league, Oubre Drummond is not only the most well-equipped to be Embiid's backup, but him being here already for a full season and a half. Either way.
Half season, yeah.
Either way. Him already being here, albeit under a different coach and very much different roster, still really helps the comfort level, the comfortability of him being here again. And when
he knows what it's like to play behind Embiid.
Exactly. And when you factor in, not that this should really come as a surprise to anyone, because this is what you'd expect from your MVP level Hall of Fame center, but Joel Embiid apparently reached out to Oubre in the offseason, basically recruited him and said, I need you here, man. You have to sign here because we need you. That, I think, really is a cherry on top when you look at the fact that Oubre Drummond not only wanted to come here, but was recruited by Joel Embiid specifically. And I don't know about you, but if Joel Embiid asked me to play with him and be his backup, I'm doing it. Obviously, I couldn't because I am very far from an NBA player. But if I was Oubre Drummond, I would do it, and he did. So it adds so many layers of comfort overall just to the whole Joel Embiid situation.
Absolutely. I think that's maybe even that has to deal with, Embiid even being vocal enough to say what he said today or, within the last week about, him not playing in back-to-backs because he knows who's behind him. And again, during that brief time that Oubre was here, it was comfortable because Joel's going to miss games. You just know it, regardless of what he says, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And having Oubre there is a really, really, really nice thing. And I think, and I hope, because we have, even when he was here, because we were recording then, way back then, feels like decades ago, but Oubre Drummond was here, and Planet 76, we were vocal about of our appreciation for a guy like Oubre Drummond. So I hope the Sixers fans will as well when they see what he does this season to spot Joel Embiid. So the other piece that we have not mentioned today, we maybe touched on him a little bit last week, but here as we sit 9 games out from the start of the regular season, let's talk a little bit about Tyrese Maxey, the 2023-24 NBA's most improved player, first-time All-Star. You know the deal. I'll give you a couple numbers on him, and then we can kind of talk about what we expect from him this coming season. So he averaged a career-high 25.9 points a game. Absolutely sensational. 6 assists, almost 4 rebounds. Shot it 37% from 3 on 8 attempts a game. He was at 43% the season before on just over 6 attempts a game. So now he's 24, soon to be 24, entering year 5, which is another thing that's hard to believe. And he's gotten significantly better every season, every single season. He finished, I think, 6th in most improved a few years ago, and then he won it in year 4. So now gearing up for year 5. Sky's the limit for this guy, man. Your thoughts on Tyrese heading into the season?
Yeah, and what was that last part?
Sky's the limit, and your thoughts on him heading into this year?
Yeah. It's so funny, too, because with all of the additions that the Sixers made this offseason, not that Tyrese Maxey kind of took a back seat, but we just had so much to unpack that we also didn't really acknowledge future All-NBA potential superstar someday. Maybe not. I don't know. Tyrese Maxey. The one thing I will say, and you do have it on here, so I can already imagine what you're thinking about this. Significantly better each season. Tyrese Maxey really has made strides every single year, whether it be his three-point shooting. Well, actually, his three-point shooting is probably his biggest stride because he's improved his three-point shooting every single season in the NBA, and I expect that to be the same this year. I'll touch on that in a little bit. He's made drastic improvements pretty much each year, whether it be one or two categories of his game, his scoring, his ball handling, his passing, that's gotten a lot better. I do want to give a quick shout out to James Harden. I know things were a bit sour when he left here, but I really want to tip my hat to James Harden for contributing however significantly he did to Tyrese Maxey's development, because you can see James Harden in Tyrese Maxey. I don't want to give Harden all the credit, obviously, because Tyrese Maxey put in the work, but if you watch Tyrese Maxey's game very closely, you can see a lot of James Harden in his game. And the one thing I like about Tyrese, too, is that I don't know if he does it on purpose, but you can also see elements of other guys' games. You can see a little bit of Steph Curry in him. You can see a little bit of Damian Lillard in him, which I love because all those players are phenomenal. And they really are players that Tyrese can mold his game after / pull things from, especially when it comes to three-point shooting and jump shooting overall. The three-point shooting. I want to see Tyrese he took 8 last year. I want to see him take at least 9 per game. I'd love to see him take 10 a game. He can. And I think I don't know if he will, but he can. He's obviously going to have to share the ball a lot more now because there's a lot more players on this team who can hit shots, and Paul George is going to take some shots away from him as well. But I'd love it if he could take 9-10 threes a game. Even if he only makes 38%. I'm okay with that. It's just above league average, but it's okay because the volume is insane. And at some point, if he takes 10 threes consistently, he'll start to hit more threes. It'll slowly inch up to 39%, 39.5%. He needs to shoot as many threes as he can. Obviously, he shouldn't just shoot threes, but he needs to shoot as many threes as he can. And he's going to be able to because even though he's going to be the Sixers' first option even though he's going to be their second option, sometimes first option, he's still going to be open a ton because opposing defenses are also still going to have to guard a lot of players on this team. You can't just leave everybody open outside of Maxey and Embiid and George. You got to guard other guys too. So Maxey's going to get open. He's going to get his fair share. And the good thing about it too is something I touched on before. He's gotten so good at creating his own shot. And that's going to be another contributing factor to how many threes he takes because he's going to be able to create on the perimeter, get open. He's going to be able to take guys off the dribble, isolate, and score from 3. And that's something that he's taken such a stride in as well. And the last thing I'll say is he's going to have an amazing season. If I was a voter, I could imagine he's all NBA level this season. I just think he's already close. He's already very close. He's like a top 30 player in the NBA. So
with ease, yeah.
With ease. So I could see him taking that leap because realistically, it's not that big of a leap. A Tyrese Maxey All-NBA leap is not that big of a leap, especially considering where he's at right now in his development. An All-NBA leap is not that far off. So I could definitely see that happening. Whether or not he makes it is another story. We'll talk about that another time. But the one thing I want to say and finish off with is I've heard some people talk about, will Tyrese Maxey get MVP votes this year? Could he be a dark horse MVP candidate? No, that's not going to happen. No hate to Tyrese. It's just that, historically speaking, MVP level players are players on a team or teams where they're pretty much the guy, or there is a significant drop off between them and the second best player. Yes, Embiid is way, way, way better than Maxey and George, but there's not really like a significant drop-off between Embiid and those two guys. So if anybody on the team, it's going to be Embiid, but also Maxey's not going to get the volume that MVP-level players, MVP candidates historically get when it comes to shot attempts, when it comes to usage. He's not a high-usage player, and he's not going to be in this system for the Sixers on really either end of the floor, but specifically on offense. So, no, don't even think about putting him in MVP talks. It's just not going to happen. Do not get your hopes up. It's not going to happen.
Yep, and with Paul George here, because of what he's going to need, just in terms of getting his own shots up and his own looks, it's very possible we could see Tyrese's points per game be lower than they were this year.
Right.
This past season. Right. 'Cause, he's up near 26 a game. I think that's going to be pretty hard to duplicate with Paul George out here and Embiid out here. Now, again, depending on how many games those guys miss, Embiid missed a lot of time. That was another reason why his numbers were up near 26 a game. But just something to look for there too, because Paul George's got to get his. It's funny that you mentioned the 3-point shooting, because I wanted to mention Tyrese's ability to get to the hoop, because he is so incredibly crafty, incredibly quick. And an ability to do that, and I think we could see an even greater volume of that, given the system that the Sixers have now, with Paul George around him instead of some other guys who will remain nameless. And then you throw in Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre, who's back, and some of those guys off the bench who can really knock down shots. Like this floor spacing for this team is going to be pretty solid. I don't know why this popped in my head, but Andre Drummond's been shooting some threes in the preseason. I don't know if we want to see that. That's topic for another day. But
we don't.
Yeah,
we don't
someone who's shooting
that.
40% from the free throw line should never step foot out there. That's like the floor is lava when you get beyond the 3-point line. If you have the ball in your hand, you should not be doing that. Anyway, we'll end with this. What do you think about just some? We look at the Sixers roster. We know who their starting five looking like it's going to be, and just maybe a couple guys that you're looking forward to seeing on the floor together. Maybe you have a whole 5-man lineup. You're like, I really want to see this, or just whatever that is for you heading into this season.
It's so funny because I've thought about potential 5-man units that I'd love to see for the Sixers. Not that I have them written down, but they're in my brain as we speak. I would love to see a lineup where Paul George is essentially your center. Obviously, that wouldn't be great for long periods of time because, especially if you're playing bigger teams, you're going to kind of get exposed on defense because Paul George is just not physical enough to deal with the bigger centers, bigger power forwards on some teams. But you could run that lineup for a few minutes that would be such a high-powered offense. We're talking Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, and insert like Jared McCain or Ricky Council or Eric Gordon as the fifth guy. You're talking about a really high-powered You're giving up a lot of points, but you're talking about scoring a lot of points. So I'd love to see that. I would love to see potentially a lineup with Gershon at center. I'm thinking any combination of Maxey, Oubre, George, both Martins, Council, Gordon, Jackson, McCain. I'd love to see that because I feel like it's definitely a step up from a Paul George at center lineup because you're getting Gershon, who's very physical, way stronger, a much greater physical presence inside on defense than Paul George, good rebounder. So that's something that's more realistic to be able to play for longer periods of time. You would try, in theory, and I'm sure Nick Nurse does or would trust Gershon way more at center than Paul George for extended periods of time, especially defensively. So that would be a good small ball lineup, like a smaller unit to run against teams like the Clippers or I'm trying to think of teams that go small a lot. That I'm drawing a blank. Maybe the Bucks. Either way, I don't know. I don't want to name teams right now because I'm gonna start thinking too much. But teams that run small, that would be a good lineup to run. And I'm maybe like a 4-guard lineup. That's kind of insane. Maxey, Gordon. Well, guard, when I say that, I'm really thinking like Maxey, Gordon, McCain, George, something weird, but could also kind of work at some points because they shoot a lot of threes. Maxey, Oubre, George,
we
Council.
Talked about the versatility. We talked about last week the versatility of some of these guys, including George and Oubre and Martin.
Oh, even like a Maxey, Oubre, George, Council, or both Martins. Maxey, Oubre, George, Council, or KJ Martin, something crazy like that. I think KJ did get some run at center last year, in limited time. So that's something that would be cool because he's also kind of a power player, a bit stronger. Obviously, he's not as tall as most centers or even small ball centers. Like Gershon is way more equipped for that. But I feel like in limited time, a KJ Martin at center lineup could be really cool because you're essentially having small ball, but KJ can also cut and move and run to the basket and catch lobs and things. So I think that'd be really cool. Like you said, and we talked about it last week, the versatility is off the charts. You can do so much with. You're talking about a legit. Give me 10. I mean, there's 10 guys here. There might be 12, but there's at least 10 guys here you can say, I trust all these players. Let's see what they can give you. That's amazing because they didn't have that last year or the year before. So that's amazing. I'm just really excited.
It's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. And you mentioned Gershon a couple times there, and I mean he's a guy that's already turning a little bit ahead, including my own so far this preseason.
Right.
And so curious to see how he's gonna fit into the equation. I think the first that first answer you gave it's better than mine because mine's kind of a cop out answer.
What's your answer?
So I'm just really, 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 this is not unique at all because it's going to be the first minute of Sixers gameplay. It's going to be rolled out there, but I'm excited to see specifically George Martin, Caleb Martin, and Kelly Oubre together.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that too, though. So
the things that you can do defensively with those three, and I think Nick Nurse is excited, and just to know what he can do on both ends of the floor with those guys.
Yeah,
all at
I'm
the
excited.
Same time.
I'm excited to see what he does too.
Right, not to mention, I mentioned those three names, and I didn't even say who they're going to be on the floor with, which is Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Like that's insane. And to see those three mesh and click will be kind of a cool thing. To start games, to end games, and then. To see who files in off the bench for them. I will give a similar one, kind of a unique thing that, we talked about last week is Reggie Jackson and how he's going to fit into this equation. I would love to see, lineups with him kind of running the show while Tyrese is getting a breather, but then, kind of a mix of bench and starter with Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin, Paul George, Andre Drummond, something like that, where you have some, a guy who's competent, can run the offense. You got an all-star out there in Paul George, but then you also have some other veteran leadership. Eric Gordon's going to get a lot of catch-and-shoot opportunities with this team. So that's going to be cool, too. I mean, that's a guy, when we signed him, we both were like, wow, this, look at his year-by-year numbers. He's averaged double digits in the NBA every single season he's been in the NBA. I don't think many people know that, but he has. And he's not going to do it this year, but... he still has a lot of good potential to fill a need on this team. So that's what I'm excited to see. Season's only 9 days away, and we're going to get into a whole lot more next episode. But anything else you got right now?
No, I don't think so. And the one thing about Eric Gordon too is he's literally just here to shoot threes, run the floor, and occasionally play defense. And you're obviously not expecting much from him defensively because he's like 38 or whatever, however old he is, but that's all he's here to do. And in his career, I think he's been asked to do more, definitely, but here he's literally just here to shoot threes and run the floor and maybe handle the ball.
He's only 35 years young.
Sorry, Eric, if you're watching this,
don't do that, man, like that. I was gonna say 38 too, but that's beside the point.
If he's watching this, he's definitely not watching this. Sorry,
he'll be 36 in the season.
Yeah.
But a guy that's done it for a long time and brought consistency to all of these teams that he's been on. For reference, middle of his career, he was jacking up about 8-9 threes a game. Last 4 seasons, he's been around 5 threes a game. Expect that to continue in his time in Philly. He's been on some good teams, obviously, throughout his career. And, he's going to plug and play really nicely. He could be one that, honestly, I've slept on a little bit as far as a big acquisition for this team. So, full disclosure there. But, it's exciting. Sixers are back. Planet 76 is back. And the next one we'll get out will be, that full-on regular season preview as we gear up for the Bucks next Wednesday night. I believe it's on ESPN. to start the 2024-25 NBA season.
Yes.
And fitting round number for you, we'll be at episode 160 for that episode. So we'll see you next time on Planet 76. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.